Hello everyone, welcome to the Psychology of Dating podcast. You are listening to Nadine Newkirk. I am both a clinical psychologist and a dating coach. For today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how to shift your mindset to help you get back on the dating apps if you've found that you've been on and off them, or you've been never on them, or you've been off them for a long time. This is the episode for you. And this topic actually came up from a listener. If you have a question or a topic about dating, about psychology and dating, please message me at my website, nadineNewkirk.com. And just like today, I'll be able to answer your question on the podcast. Before we jump into the episode, making an announcement that my waitlist is now open if you'd like to join the next dating coaching program. This program consists of 12 weekly group sessions, 1 hour each, and there is various different topics. I have just done week 10 of 12 with my current group, and we covered sex and dating. So this was everything from how to decide for yourself, what timing with each, new date, new connection you make when you want to have sex, what that looks like, what consent is, how to talk about sex and ask for what you want, how to say no to unwanted requests, and also how to respond to other people's no's so they feel most comfortable and you feel most comfortable. So if you are struggling in dating, or this is something where you feel like you need a bit of extra support, you can look at the details on my website, nadineNewkirk.com. It consists of weekly group sessions as well as some individual sessions to get more tailored needs and to be able to set your goals and to work through any barriers that are coming up. Okay, the podcast topic. How do you shift your mindset to get back on the dating apps? The first thing I want you to consider and explore is, what are your current thoughts about the apps? And we want to tease apart the difference between what are my opinions, my judgments, my fears about the apps, and what is the actual facts of the situation. Facts are something that are objective, that, say, if you put it in a scientific report or it's held up at court, those are the neutral circumstances. So this might be, I have been on the app on and off for the last 6 months. I have initiated conversations with 4 people. I have had 20 matches, and I have not asked anyone on a date. Those are the facts of a situation. And when we look at judgments or opinions or fears, usually a clue is that we're using quite descriptive language. We might use all or nothing or black and white thinking. So some examples are, all apps don't work. They're useless. So kind of these large, broad statements. It could be, apps are really boring. Or maybe it's impossible to get any matches. No one replies. The apps are only for casual hookups. The apps are for only people of, in their 20s or 30s or whatever age range you're not. Our mind will say that it's impossible. These are judgments. These are fears. This is not a fact of a situation. You can't put 100 people using the app and say, 100% of the time, no one's ever going to get a match. That's just not true. So what do we do once you've identified the facts versus your judgments? And I really recommend that you write down what you're thinking about the apps, because it's much easier than when it's all kind of whirling in your head. So really write it down and then circle, highlight, underline, what are the judgments, and then rewrite it and really just think, what are the concrete, objective facts of this situation? And then once we've got the judgments, we can do a few different things with those. We can reframe them, we can challenge them, we can see if there's any other angles to look at it. And I'll go through a few key judgments that people have said to me in today's episode. The first one is, the absolute useless. They just don't work. They just don't work for me. With this thought, of course you're not going to go on the apps or fully commit or really give it your 100%. You might go on it a little bit, but you're not really going to go on it every day. You're not going to initiate every conversation, ask lots of people on dates, because you don't believe that it's going to work. And as humans, we don't want to waste our time and energy on something that we think is useless. So if you don't believe that you can get the outcome you want, you're not going to try and figure out a strategy. So we really need to reframe that thought. And I want to give you an example. So this is like saying exercise doesn't work or online job applications never work. This is not fact. This is someone's experience and the way their mind is making up a story about it, interpreting it. So if I look at the online job application example, like what does it mean if I say they don't work? Is it that I have sent off 13 online job applications and not received any replies? Are those the facts? Or is it I've looked at lots of jobs online and haven't applied to anyone, or maybe I've applied to 5 and heard back from 1. Maybe I don't have a job. What does it mean when I say they don't work? Because there are so many different variations and ways that we could do online job application. You know, the difference between someone who has a mindset where they're like, it's normal to not hear back sometimes, it's normal to not always get a job straight away. They might have more persistence, this abundance mindset, that if I have the right strategy, if I be consistent, if I have the right skills or get the right knowledge, that I can use this as a platform to help me get a job. So this person might have a quota where they say, okay, I'm going to apply for at least 5 jobs online every week. And imagine they do that for 6 months. That's quite a lot of jobs that they're maximizing the opportunity to get. And maybe they say, okay, I need to really do a cover letter, tailor it to each job. I might get someone who's specializes in the area of hiring people. What are they called? Recruiter. And I'm going to get them to read over my CV, double check it. And maybe this person still applies for jobs in person. They walk around with their CV or ask friends, do you know anyone? They're maximizing their chances. This would give a very different outcome or statistically put them in a better position to get a job than someone who says, applying for jobs online doesn't work, full stop. And maybe this person half-heartedly goes on and off. They send off 5 job applications. They don't get it and they're like, oh, see, it doesn't work. They don't send off a job application for another 3 months. Then they go back on. Statistically speaking, the person who has been consistent, who's shown up with a strategy, is more likely to get a job. And this is the same with using online apps, that we need to think about how are you using them? Because yes, they might not be as effective if we don't have the right strategy. So it's looking at what are my search criterias? How am I sending messages? Am I initiating? When am I asking people on dates? Am I initiating to ask people on dates? How picky am I when I'm looking about who to ask on a date or not? There's a lot of questions that go into this. What types of messages do I send people? What am I doing for my mindset or for my emotions or moods when I go on the apps? Have I been consistent? Have I been doing it daily? Have I been finding a way to not get burnout and be consistent with it? So these are the types of things that we want to look at rather than saying blanket they don't work. We can actually focus on strategy, focus on using it to our best advantage. And sometimes people say, well, I just don't want to go on the apps. No, this is always a choice. What I most recommend is maximize your chances statistically to meet someone. And that's not ruling out any platform. So it could be in person, it could be via friends, it could be speed dating events. It can also be using the apps as a means for what they are. They're a means to find people who also want to go on dates, and, who can be in the age range that we're wishing. And it maximizes our chances of meeting people that we might not normally meet. The second judgment or doubt thought that can come up for people using dating apps is that they're too boring. That they feel like, they just don't give me any spark or excitement. I'd prefer to meet someone in person. And what I encourage you to explore here is, what is your value in using the apps? And what is your long-term goal and value? If your long-term goal is to, for example, be in a long-term committed relationship, share your life with someone, have adventures with someone, have someone to help you when, you're feeling low, thinking about how could the app be a means to this? Because if we connect a simple, mundane task with our long-term value, it always gives it more meaning. I might think brushing my teeth is boring. But if I connect it to a longer-term value of health and, maybe financial stability, knowing it's really expensive if you have to have root canal or, you get toothache, and I want to have my teeth as long as possible because I like to enjoy yummy foods. Suddenly this 2-minute kind of mundane task of brushing your teeth has more importance. And that's what we want to tap into and think about when you're on the apps. So instead of thinking, I need this to give me like sparks and excitement and lots of hope, the app itself isn't going to do that. It's actually your thoughts which create those feelings. So what can you think about or tap into that helps the apps have a bit more meaning when you're using them? Might be looking at, okay, I'm going to set aside 20 minutes a day to swipe a bit on the apps, and reminding yourself, this is one task that helps me to connect with people, practice skills for dating, that gets me closer towards my goal. How would you feel if you had those thoughts instead of, this is a waste of time, it's boring, there's no good people on here? So really do a bit of an audit and look at, what are the thoughts that come up for me as I'm swiping on the apps? Write them down. Notice how you feel when you see those thoughts. And this is where we want to look at, is there any other way I can think about this that can create a different emotion, create a different experience? Third doubt thought or judgment thought that someone might have about using the apps is, I can't get any matches. I don't get replies, or it's impossible to get dates. And again, we don't want to just stay with this as a blanket fact because there are so many different ways to use the apps and to maximize chances. So this is where I'd look at doing an audit of your use of the apps. What is your profile? Have you looked at, what you've written there, your photos? Have you got other opinions? Have you looked at your search criteria? Have you practiced initiating or asking on dates? What are your messages like? What's the quality of them? Even asking someone on a date, how do you ask them? If you say, are you free to go out with me this Tuesday? And they say no, that would sound nice, but I'm busy. Have you left it there, or have you followed up saying, oh, great, well, is there any other day in the next couple of weeks where you'd be free to do that or something else? Following up, making sure that you're showing up to maximize the chances of being able to get on those dates. And the second main thing I want you to think about to help you get into a healthier, more easier mindset to jump back on the dating apps is to think about, what would it look like if I reached my goal? So work backwards. Imagine that you have used the apps to help you get your long-term relationship that you're after, or whatever it is that you're wanting from dating, and think, okay, what did I have to do to get there? Imagine it's already done. Imagine what type of habits or actions or thoughts or feelings or support did I need to get that result? Because usually we do it the other way. We think about, I want this, and then we think about all the reasons why it's not going to work. And that's not very motivating, is it? So imagine, what would you have needed to do to get that result? Maybe you needed to be consistent on the apps. and you did it daily. Maybe you figured out ways to reduce burnout. So maybe you didn't have notifications on, but you replied to people when you had time. Maybe you had friends look at your profile pictures and, give suggestions. Maybe you practiced being assertive, and even though there was these ideas of, I'm a woman, I can't ask people out, you did it anyway. You challenged yourself. Maybe you looked at and redefined what success means when you're on the dating apps. Because if we define success as, I've just met that person, well, that's the very end goal. Is there no way that we can have successes along the way? Because otherwise it'll seem like you're failing until you met that person. And sometimes we might have various different dates for a year, for 2 years until we meet that person. And that doesn't mean something's gone wrong. That's just the nature of dating. So could you look at success as practicing skills, showing up as the type of person you want to be in a relationship, of being able to navigate challenging conversations or setting boundaries, or being able to show up and be mindful and have fun on dates, or to bring more laughter and jokes? What is it that you're wanting to work on in dating? How can you create that from your 50%? Know that we can't control the other side of people. We can't control their 50%. But think about, what do I want to learn and develop and practice on this journey? How can I have little wins, little successes along the way? That can really help with mindset. Okay, everyone, I hope this was helpful, and a reminder that if you have any dating questions or topics that you'd like to hear on this podcast, just send me a message at nadineNewkirk.com, and it'll always be anonymous on the podcast. Okay, I hope you have a lovely day or night wherever you are. Speak with you next time.